Guys, welcome back to another MCreator tutorial. So today what we're going to be looking at is two blocks, and we'll be looking at yaw, which is a little bit different, and then we'll be looking at pitch as well, which both can be found under the entity procedures data, and they should be near the top here. We have yaw right here, and we have the pitch right here. Both are a little bit different with how they're set up, and we'll be going into detail of what you can basically do to synchronize yaw to allow for both client and server side degrees. So this is basically the math that we'll be using for that, but we'll first look at what it's actually doing and everything like that, so you have a better idea of what to expect when you're using this particular block. And we also need the pitch, which is a little bit different as well. It's not exactly what you would expect normally, but we'll be covering that. So let's go ahead and print out a couple of these values. So I need a print block, so we're going to go to text, and then we're going to print out a couple of these. We're going to print out first yaw, and then we're going to print out pitch after that. So we'll do like a divider like this so we can actually see what's going on. We'll start with pitch, and then what we'll do is we'll do yaw at the bottom. There's a reason for this. It's so we can actually have a cleaner message when we're actually printing out the values. So pitch is a lot more simpler than yaw, so we'll be using pitch instead of, like, pitch first rather than the yaw direction. We're going to be doing it on tick update for the player. The reason being it supports client and server, and we'll be able to see if there's any differences between the values with that particular one, which will be really good for this tutorial. And we're just basically printing this out to console. So let's go ahead and save this, and then we'll pop in game. All right, for the sake of this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete one of these worlds, and then we're going to recreate it, and then we're going to spawn directly facing a single direction. And we're going to look at our console now. So if you look over on the left hand side, you can see both degrees are at 0, 0. If we start to look up, then you can see some of these are changing. So basically, if we're looking up right now, our pitch is actually going in the negatives. So you think that normally when you're typing out the pitch, it would be positive if you're looking up, because that's the direction, well, Y is when you're looking up in the direction, right? Well, it's actually negative when you're looking up, but positive when you look down. So let's go ahead and look down here, and you can see that the pitch is a positive value, which is again on the left hand side of our print message. So let's go ahead and look at yaw next. So we're looking over towards south. We're a little bit on the right hand side. If we start to turn around, we can see that we got to a value here. Now there is something that is probably noticeable right off the bat. And if we pause here, we can see that the server thread is basically on server side, right? This is a negative 167 degrees. But if we look at client side, it's 192. So let's go ahead and keep rotating around until we get to south again. And you might notice now that we're over 360 degrees. So you're like, okay, what's going on here? It's not the same as server side? No, it isn't. The process of yaw is a lot different on client side than it is on server side. And the reason for this is client side just constantly increases based on the direction that you're going. So we've been rotating right up until this point, and the number has been going into the positives. To mess things up even more, if we go and rotate all the way back around and start facing this value, we can see when we get to 360, that value is still a negative value. So we have negative 368 right here. So it's the same story. If we just keep rotating to the left, the number will increase. I'm not sure why Mojang decided to go with this route for the yaw and everything like that. It's extremely hard to work with, especially when you're modding and stuff. So I've worked with GPT to kind of calculate the math needed to get the proper yaw direction. And what you can do is we'll build this from scratch so you guys know how to build it, but we'll go ahead and see what's going on here. So we're printing out, we created a local variable, and this local variable is just called yaw. We can call it whatever we want though. And we're using 360 a few times here, but we're also modding, which is going to use modulus to basically make sure that it doesn't go over 360. We're also adding 360, and I'm not entirely sure, my mind can't really wrap around why this works, but it does synchronize both client and server. So let's go ahead and print out yaw, and then we'll run the game. So we need to create text with. I actually already have a print block for this, and we'll test this in game right now. All right, so we're going to delete one of these worlds and then recreate the other one. And that will give us a fresh world to work with rotation. So we don't need to worry about anything that is going to be wrong or anything like that. So we'll recreate, click create, and we'll quickly take a look at the direction that we have here. So both are at 0, 0. If we open up our F3 screen, we can see that we're facing south. So if we turn to our right, the number will start to increase. So if we go to the west, we are now facing 90 degrees. So west is 90 degrees, south is 0 degrees, which is also 360 degrees. And if we continue over to the other direction, we're now facing north. So we have a direction of, let's say 180. So we have a direction of 180 for north. And if we go to our east, it is 270. And then from 270 to basically 359.99 would be your east direction. So you could do less than 360, and then that would calculate the value between. So let's go ahead and see what we can actually do with this value. Now, you might have noticed that this is actually synchronizing pretty much on both on client and server. The positive number is always the same. So we can do quite a bit with this that now that it's basically working on server and client. The last 3 decimals are basically perfectly the same. I'm sure it goes past that a little bit too, but we'll only be testing for the 3 decimal point when we're actually testing things, and that will make sure that it's got room for any errors or anything like that that might be over the decimal point if there's a small inconsistency. So let's go ahead and configure this a little bit further. And now that we have it on both server and client, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and format this value to 3 decimal points. So we're going to use the format number. We're going to put our number in here, and then we're going to have our 2 pound signs followed by a period, and then 3 pound signs, and that's what's going to keep it to that exact decimal point. You can go with 2 as well. That would probably be better if you needed that, but if you wanted a more precise thing, then you would go with your 3 pound sign, but we'll go with 2 for now. That's probably more than enough. And what I'm going to do is we can test for this value. We can actually convert this back over to a number. So rather than have it a string, because this is going to be a string value, we can put it back into a math form. And for that, we just use the number from text. And this will keep the decimal point for the 2 here. So that's perfect for what we need. And then what we can do is we can test if that value is equal to or greater than and less than. We can probably pass this back over to the variable actually, because then we just use the variable rather than test for the format that we do each time. So we can do that by going like this, and then we'll just format it here. And then what we can do is to test for the north direction. Again, north is 180 degrees, right? So we'll be testing for if north is between, actually second thought, let's start with the lowest number and then we'll work with that. So we don't need this block here. We're going to test if it is 0, equal to or greater than 0. And then we're going to test if it is equal or less than 45. So basically 45 is going to be the angle that is where we want for the south direction, but we also want to know basically if it is less than 360. So 360 should be less than, and we want to know if it is equal to 315. So 315. So this will text for the angle of the player if it's within a certain range. Now we're going to combine these with an AND statement as well. Or pardon me, an OR statement. We want an OR statement for this one. And what this is going to do is, because 0, it switches over from 360 or 359 to, or 360 to 0. What we want to know is if this is actually on the south direction. So we can actually do that by going ahead and testing for south. So we'll just print out a simple value here to console, and we'll go ahead and say south so we know what's going on here. And now let's do the west direction. So west is going to be on the right here. So this is a little bit easier to calculate. We just need one of these, and we're going to test from 45 to 135, so 135 here. So this will be our west direction, and we do that for the other ones as well. So we need an else if statement for both of these, and then we can go ahead and test if it is between 135 and 225, and then we'll do the last one, which is 225 and 315. So 315 will be at the part here. So 315, and this will be north, and the other one will be east. So we can print these values out now, and we'll just see what basically is going on and compare it to our F3 screen, and then we can basically know if it's working on both client and server. So let's go ahead and save this, and we'll go ahead and pop back into game. All right, so same story. I'm going to delete this old world, and we're going to recreate this other one. This will give us a brand new world to work with, and then we can pop up the F3 screen immediately. So right now it says we're facing south, and if we start to rotate towards this direction, you can see we're at the it says around 45.5, and we're still facing west here. We're at 45 degrees. We're still facing west, and the direction there says west. If we go and just slightly move over to the south direction, which is 44.4, it's actually be lower than 45 degrees. It says south, and so does the facing direction on the thing there. So if we go ahead and face north, it will say north, east, and then when we get back to our south direction, it will say east as well. So we can test. As soon as it switches over to the other direction here, it basically changes the direction. So it's really hard to get that precise, but you can see on the console it's saying south at that point. So that's basically how you work with yaw, and pitch is not too hard to work with compared to yaw. It's pretty straightforward. Like you're just testing for negative if you want to test if the player's or entity is looking up, positive if the entity is looking down. Now let's quickly put together this math value here because it's super simple to put together. We'll start from scratch. So I'm just going to grab our variable. This is our local variable. I've covered a tutorial on how to create that. So the first thing that we're going to need is to mod the value. So we're going to need a math operator for this, and then we're going to select the plus thing and click mod. And we want our yaw direction to be here, followed by 360 for the value. After that, we're combining this with 360. So we need another math value, put this on this slot, and we can copy the 360 from here. And that's the second part. And then finally, we need one more math value, and we're going to mod this value, put this on the left-hand side again, and mod this by 360. And that's all there is to it. That's the math that you need to make sure that it's synchronized between client and server. So hopefully this tutorial has helped you. If you are new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe, comment down below, rate the video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Peace out.